Dawn light had begun to filter through the screen of falling water, though shadows still lay deep at the sides of the cave. Grey Wing hauled himself out of his sleeping hollow and spotted Shaded Moss huddled with Clear Sky and the other cats who wanted to leave. The group was larger than before. Their heads turned toward Grey Wing as he padded over to join them. There was surprise in their eyes. "You've changed your mind?" Clear Sky asked, blinking hopefully. Grey Wing dipped his head. "I'm thinking about it," he responded reluctantly. Turtle Tail came to sit by his side. "I'm so pleased you're coming with us," she purred, her eyes shining. "It's not long now before we leave," Shaded Moss meowed, his gaze traveling over each cat in turn. "All of you should rest up and eat as much as you can." "Lying around while others hunt for us?" Dappled Pelt objected. "I don't like the sound of that." Shaded Moss flicked his tail impatiently. "It's only for a day or two," he pointed out. "And once we leave, the others will have enough prey to go around. But if we don't have our full strength before we set out..." A screech from the other side of the cave interrupted him. Grey Wing looked around to see Dewy Leaf charging toward them across the cavern. The tortoiseshell queen halted in front of Moon Shadow, her legs stiff with fury and her neck fur bristling. "What are you doing, skulking around over here?" she demanded. "I'm going to have your kits. You promised that you'd stay with me." "Oh. Trouble," Turtletail breathed into Grey Wing's ear. Moon Shadow flinched backward. "There isn't enough food," he explained awkwardly. "Our kits will be better off if there are fewer mouths to feed." Dewy Leaf bared her teeth in a snarl. "And who's going to catch prey while I'm still nursing them?" Hearing her complaints, other cats hurried over to find out what was going on. "She has a point," Twisted Branch meowed, glaring at Moon Shadow. "Cats with responsibilities should stay here." "Are you saying we're irresponsible to leave?" Tall Shadow snapped back at him. "Yeah." Shattered Ice sprang to his paws to stand beside the black she-cat, his green eyes narrowed. "We're going off into the unknown, into danger, to make a better home for you and the other cats who stay here. You don't have to do anything." Sharp Hail thrust himself forward, his tail lashing. "No, just sit here and starve." In the midst of the commotion, Grey Wing noticed Bright Stream hanging back, not part of either group and not joining in the argument. Has she really made up her mind to leave with Clear Sky? He asked himself. She doesn't look as if she knows what she wants. His heart ached for her, and for Fluttering Bird, and for all his tribe mates who seemed ready to fight with claws and teeth over the future. "Enough." The voice came from the back of the cave, not loud, but with such authority that it cut through all the wrangling. The cats fell silent, parting as Stone Teller limped into the center of the group. "I can't bear to see you squabbling like this," she continued. "My vision promised something better for those cats willing to go in search of it. But I could be wrong." She shook her head, clearly racked with uncertainty. "Perhaps we should forget about finding somewhere else to live." As she was speaking, Lion's Roar came up behind her and stood close to her side. Bending his head, he spoke into her ear. Though his voice was low, Grey Wing managed to make out the words. "Don't lose faith in what you saw." Addressing all the cats, he went on. "My mother told me that before she and the others left the lake, they held a vote to decide their shared future. Why don't we vote again now?" he suggested. "If most cats want us to stay here and take a chance with the rest of the cold season, then Shaded Moss won't leave. What do you think, Stone Teller?" The old white she-cat blinked thoughtfully, then turned to Shaded Moss. "Would you accept the result of a vote?" she asked. Shaded Moss nodded. "I don't want to go without enough cats to stand a chance of surviving the journey." Stone Teller glanced around at the other cats. Grey Wing could see that their anger was dying down. "Grey Wing Bright Stream," the healer mewed. "Please collect as many stones as there are cats." "Even me." Jagged Peak squeaked, with an excited bounce. Quiet Rain stretched out her tail to caress her son's ear. "No, not the kits," she began. "Even the kits," Stoneteller interrupted gently. Every cat will have a chance to be heard. We are still one community, friends and kin over seasons upon seasons. We must all have a part in deciding our future. Dipping his head to Stoneteller, Grey Wing headed out of the cave with Bright Stream. They found a scatter of small stones not far from the waterfall, under an overhang, and began to roll them together into a heap. Quiet Rain wants me to leave, he told Bright Stream after a moment. Bright Stream's eyes widened and her ears flicked up in surprise. I'd have thought she would want you and Clear Sky to stay now. Grey Wing shook his head. She believes we stand a better chance of survival in the place that Stoneteller has seen. Bright Stream added another stone to the pile before she responded. Are you going to go? She asked hesitantly. I don't know. Grey Wing found himself giving voice to his inward struggle. The way Fluttering Bird died showed me how vulnerable we are here in the mountains. But, is it cowardly to run away? No cat could think that you're a coward, Grey Wing, Bright Stream told him. When they had collected enough stones, they carried them back into the cave, a few at a time. Shaded Moss and Tall Shadow gathered the pebbles into a pile at Stoneteller's paws, their gaze solemn with the importance of their task. Now, Stoneteller meowed. Every cat must take a stone. Place it on the waterfall side of the cave if you think Shaded Moss and all the cats who want to go should leave the mountains, and on the inner cave wall if you think they should stay. Shaded Moss, you go first. Shaded Moss stepped forward and dipped his head to Stoneteller with deep respect. I trust you with my life, he told her. If you have seen a better place for some of us to live, I promise I will find it. Taking a stone in his jaws, he carried it to the waterfall side of the cave and laid it down so close to the cascade that drops of sparkling water splashed over it. Meanwhile, the rest of the tribe lined up for their turn to vote. Jagged Peak scraped his claws along the cave floor as if he was too excited to wait. Lion's Roar was the next cat to pick up a pebble, and he laid it down near the waterfall. My old bones won't carry me on the journey, he rasped. But if I were young enough, I'd leave. Snow Hare and Misty Water followed, both voting for the cats to stay. Clear Sky came next, in a little group with Dappled Pelt and Turtle Tail, all of them taking their stones to the waterfall side. Then Jagged Peak bounced up to the pile of stones and took one, carefully carrying it over to set it down beside his brothers. Quiet Rain shook her head. My beloved son, I can't allow you to leave. But the older cats should have the chance to go. She took her stone and laid it by the waterfall beside her kits. Jagged Peak's eyes sparkled rebelliously as he stomped toward the sleeping hollows, his tail high in the air. Bright Stream was the next cat to take a stone. Without hesitation, she placed it with the others beside the waterfall. Clear Sky's fur fluffed out with surprise as he watched her, a look of warm affection creeping into his eyes. Thank you, he whispered as she joined him, standing so close that their pelts were brushing. I did it for all our future kits, she responded. Grey Wing realized that his turn to vote had come. He felt a hard jolt in his belly, as if a falling rock had struck him. I can't put off my decision any longer. Looking around, he noticed afresh the jutting bones of his companions, their dull eyes, their air of exhaustion. At last he met his mother's gaze, and saw her eyes full of pleading. He knew that she believed his future safety lay in leaving the cave. But what about her safety? And Jagged Peaks? And all the cats who want to stay here? They need strong hunters. When Grey Wing took up a stone, he felt as though he were trying to move the whole mountain. But his poor steps were steady as he carried it to the inner wall and set it down. Without looking at his mother again, Grey Wing padded back to rejoin the other cats around Stoneteller. He was in time to see Moon Shadow pick up a stone and march determinedly over to the waterfall. Dewy Leaf padded alongside him. Your kits will never know their father's name, she hissed. Moon Shadow didn't reply. After a heartbeat, Dewy Leaf whisked around, picked up her own stone, and carried it to the inner wall. The rest of the cats voted in silence. When the last stone had been set in place, Stoneteller examined the piles. Without looking closely, Grey Wing thought that they seemed about the same size. What will we do if the votes are equal for staying and leaving? At last Stone Teller limped back to the center of the cave. There are more stones in the leaving pile, she announced. A murmur passed through the cats who surrounded her, like wind blowing over rock. They looked at each other with apprehension in their eyes, as if they had suddenly realized the magnitude of the decision they had helped to make. Good luck to those who wish to leave, Stone Teller continued. We will always remember you. The mood in the cave remained somber. Grey Wing couldn't sense any feeling of triumph, or even relief, that a firm decision had been made. Come on, Shaded Moss meowed at last. We'll go and scout the route again. We need to know exactly what we're doing before we finally set out. He led the way to the cave entrance, and the cats who planned to go with him followed. Grey Wing stayed behind, feeling awkward as he watched clear sky and the others disappearing into the dazzle of light from the falling water. After a moment he realized that quiet rain had padded up to him. I told you to leave, she murmured. You need to consider your future. Grey Wing stretched out his neck to touch noses with her. My future is here, he told her. With a brief nod, he headed out of the cave and toward the ridge, his ears pricked and his jaws parted for the faintest hint of prey. As he climbed, Grey Wing spotted Shaded Moss and his followers on top of the ridge. Shaded Moss seemed to be explaining something with waves of his tail, while his companions offered comments and suggestions. They're making their plans to leave, Grey Wing thought, with a pang of loss at his heart. He didn't want to meet them. Turning, he bounded in the opposite direction, down into the valley, hoping he might come across another hare. From the corner of his eye, he glimpsed a flicker of movement and veered toward it, his paws skidding in a flurry of snow. It was a small creature, a mouse or vole, scampering rapidly over the icy surface. Grey Wing put on an extra burst of speed, but just before he caught up, it slipped through a narrow gap between two boulders and was gone. Grey Wing tried to squeeze through after it, but the space was too small. He halted, letting out a growl of frustration. His tail drooped dejectedly, and for a few heartbeats he lost all hope. Why is it so hard to go on living here? Why must so many cats leave? A faint sound from behind made him whirl, his claws extended. Then he froze with astonishment. Stone Teller stood in front of him, her white pelt barely visible against the snow. Grey Wing couldn't remember the last time she had left the cave. Are you all right? He stammered. I'm fine, Stone Teller responded. Padding past him, she clambered awkwardly to the flat top of a nearby rock. I just wanted some fresh air, she continued. It's been a long time. Grey Wing leaped up to sit beside her. Stone Teller, he blurted out. Are you sure there's a better place beyond the sunrise? Stone Teller turned her green gaze on him. I felt more certain during my dream than ever before in my life, she assured him. I'm sad to watch so many cats leave, but I truly believe it will give all of us the best chance of survival. Then why did you leave the lake? Grey Wing asked. He was awestruck to be questioning Stone Teller about an event that had happened so long ago. She was there. She remembers all of it. Was it worth it to come and live here? It was, Stone Teller replied, a wistful note in her voice. We left for the best of reasons, and for a long time now these mountains have sheltered us well, and I had the honor of leading the tribe in our new territory. Grey Wing felt a pang of pity for the old she-cat. Stone Teller gave up her whole life in our service. She never had the chance to have a mate and kits of her own. Things could have been different for you, he suggested awkwardly. Did you ever want another kind of life? Stone Teller shook her head, seeming to understand what he meant. All the cats in the tribe are my kits, even the elders. And as for finding a mate, I knew love once, and once was enough. We can never be sure of our future, Grey Wing, she added quietly. All we can do is trust that what we believe is right. Well, I believe that it's the right thing for me to stay here, Grey Wing meowed. Stone Teller did not reply in words, but the nod she gave him silenced his doubts.